Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Mark Lüscher. I'm from AWS, working as a solution architect out of our Boston office. I'm joined here from Ruslan Mikalov, and we will be presenting today a first session about proactive threat detection and automated threat hunting in the area of security lakes. What are we covering today? So we will start a bit by the challenges in analyzing enterprise security data. We will talk about the Amazon Security Data Lake, my preferred topic. We will talk about an opportunity to transform your security operations, like what is really the added value of the Amazon Security Lake. And then I will hand over to Ruslan to talk about what is SOC Prime doing in the space of collective cyber defense. And he will introduce you to Attack Detective and how it can interact with the Amazon Security Lake. And then we will see a little bit an outview about how SOC Prime thinks everything works together, and we will end up with a small demo. About me, well, my background is security. I've been working about 25 years in the security space, knowing a lot of third-party tools, and I joined AWS about 18 months ago. But now I want to hand it over to Ruslan to quickly introduce himself.
Yeah, hello everybody. Been with SOC Prime for quite a few years. Been one of the co-founders, and now at SOC Prime I lead threat research, threat detection, content development, and professional services. Been involved with more than 100 CM projects as architect, working with, as mentioned, CM, EDR, security lakes. Happy to be here. Happy to be here with you, Mark, and talk about security lake and threat hunting.
Thank you. So what are today's challenges we have with analyzing enterprise security data? And it's only one slide. I could talk for 15 minutes. I try to keep it short. So the first challenge we have is what we call inconsistent and incomplete data. And log alerts are coming from different systems. They are scattered across multiple organizations, different silos. Like you have your application logs, you have your middleware logs, you have your platform logs, your SaaS logs. They come from everywhere. The second point is growing volumes of security data. There are large volumes of security data. And if you read a recent Gartner research, it says the log volume is increasing by 30% a year, year after year. That means you need to be smarter with what you're doing with the data, because on one hand, you want to have the visibility. On the other hand, you don't want to pay too much for keeping the data. The third challenge is what we call inefficient use of data across use cases. There are some extremely verbose data sets. Some data sets like proxy data, DNS lookups, or VPC flow log data, to mention the most important ones. You need to be very mindful that you not only collect all the data, send it to your SIEM tool, and then need to pay for it twice, because you store it in one place, you ingest it at a second place, and then you might even pay again if you want to query them. So be smarter, store all the data at one single place, and query the data from there. When you're working with a third-party SIEM vendor, you have also the problem that you're lacking direct control over process data. Once you send the data to them, it's in their storage. And if you don't want to renew the contract, sometimes it can be a very expensive value proposition. What is Security Lake? The Amazon Security Lake allows you to centralize data from AWS environments. You can also add data from SaaS providers, from on-prem, and cloud sources across AWS regions. We pretty much want to simplify it for you to get access to the data. The second point, and I go with normalization first, you want to make sure if you search data that you always find the information in the right place. Meaning an IP address, if it's contained in a log file, will always end up in a field which is called IP address, no matter where the log file comes from. That normalization, and we see it later on, is done using the OCSF framework and standard. And that's something Amazon, Splunk, and some other companies introduced August 22. Optimize. Yes, you want to query your security data fast, but the older security data gets, the less probably value it has. So you might want to have some lifecycle management, and you want to make sure that data which is no longer as relevant is stored on very cheap storage, and we can go from there. And the last point, analyze. You analyze your security data using your preferred tool. Might it be AWS tools? Might it be third-party tools? I briefly mentioned the Open Cybersecurity Schema Framework, OCSF. When we launched Security Lake or announced Security Lake in August 22, we were about 30-ish partners. The last count shows that there are 166 participants, and all the critical companies in the security space are part of the OCSF working groups. So I think, and that's my personal opinion, the market has started to accept OCSF as a critical format to support security logs. How Security Lake works, very easy. On the left side, you see the bucket Amazon Security Lake. It's a managed service. We collect log files from Amazon VPC, CloudTrail, Route 53, S3, Lambda, and ETS from all the accounts from all the regions. That means you will end up with one central Amazon Security Lake, and it will contain the data of all your AWS accounts for all the above services mentioned. We will also consolidate the findings of Amazon Security Hub, but there you will only get the findings, but you also have a consolidated view across all your accounts of all the findings. You can also use another AWS tool, which is called AWS App Fabric. If you need to convert non-AWS log sources like Okta, Office 365, and others into a format which needs to be understood by the Amazon Security Lake. On the right side, you see we centralize and normalize the security data and findings to OCSF. On the bottom, you see Amazon Security Lake is a lake which is physically sitting on an Amazon S3 bucket, and we manage that all for you. And on the right side, you have the Amazon tools which you can use to query: Athena, OpenSearch, SageMaker. I should, by fairness, also mention Bedrock now, but also all the partner tools. A different view how Security Lake works. On the left side, you have the sources. That means where you're getting the data from. I mentioned the 6 AWS sources before, but also there are many partner sources like Cisco, Palo Alto, and many more. And there are custom sources. Custom sources can be your applications, on-prem systems, or whatever you want to get into the Security Lake. The managed service Security Lake takes care of ingest, lifecycle management, subscriber management, who gets access to it, and it does everything in what we call orchestration. On the right side, we have the subscribers. The subscribers are again the tools I mentioned before, but as well the Splunks, the curators, and all the other tools. Talking about security lake partners, those are the partners for analytics tools and service partners. So everything important is there. And in the middle, our dear partner, SOC Prime. With Security Lake, you pretty much have all your log data at a central place. And then based on the use case, you will access the corresponding log file based on the use case you want to access to. The last slide I want to share before I hand it over to Ruslan is how can you test Security Lake? And we pretty much think you need to break down your POC in multiple elements. First one is a little bit of scope, which is like business context, the risk, the threats, what you want to integrate, who is your partner. Success criteria is what you want to collect. And pretty much the idea is try to collect everything. Before, it might not have been affordable, like VPC flow logs and proxy logs, DNS logs, but there's a lot of security insight into it. Test what works, implement and see what works, what doesn't work. Perform security analytics. Do threat hunting. The third point, target platform, it's more like you want to have all the data in AWS. You want to have a multi-hybrid security lake. What is the best architecture? How do you want to agree? How do you want to work? Who will be the administrator? What data sources? What subscribers? What rules? And more. Plan. Be realistic. Yes, turning it on is very fast, but plan. Ask your stakeholders, find out who does what, get the IAM permissions, get everything in place. Deployment, well, installing Security Lake is a 3-click install. That is the easiest part, but then you need to define what happens next. Validation. Make sure that whatever Security Lake provides, you can confirm that it aligns with your business. You have a defined success criteria. People are happy with your POC, and then you start implementing one log source at a time. My personal final word before I hand it off to our friends at SOC Prime is pick 5-6 log sources to use as the log sources for your POC. Do not try to run a Security Lake POC with hundreds of log sources. Back to my friends at SOC Prime.
Thanks, Mark. That was really good. Okay, now I guess I need to share my screen.
I can stop sharing. And
yeah. And this is the right screen. Check. Okay, now I guess you're able to see my screen, right? Okay, so I'll continue and I'll say a couple of words, couple of sentences with regards to who SOC Prime is, what we do, what are the areas we can help you with. We SOC Prime who build the platform to help companies establish basic security practices and increase threat or improve even like threat visibility and advance automated incident response. We operate the world's largest and the most advanced platform for collaborative cyber defense. And just a bit of a numbers that we relied upon by over 9,000 organizations. We serve Fortune 100, global 2000 enterprises. We also work with government organization, public sector, search, and we're gonna helps our customers to centrally source and support detection content to maximize the value of their existing security environments. And we do have a platform, and a collective cyber defense platform that consists of 3 products. In the middle, there's so-called TDM Threat Detection Marketplace. It's the world's largest security analytic repository that delivers like dozens, thousands, even like dozens of thousands detections aligned with MITRE. And all those detections are being constantly updated. Then as a part of our platform, we do have Encoder. Encoder is a copilot for detection engineering. What it means, it helps you to create the content, threat detection content. It helps you to validate it, helps you to translate from one format to another, from one query language to another. And it simply gives you the capability of working with the content in terms of adding exceptions, doing fine tuning, pretty much ID for detection engineering. And later you may use that content for deployment or in attack detective scans that we will cover a bit later. And then the last, but the main, is attack detective. Attack detective does effectively hunt for threats and attacks across your environment. It does automated threat hunting. So I will cover attack detective more a bit later, what it does, how it works. But I want to highlight a bit of a challenge that we wanted while developing, even before developing the attack detective, we're faced with a challenge. We used to have, like many years ago, we used to have another challenge, right? And like no content, like what content do I need to deploy, what content, where do I get it from? And it's not a challenge nowadays anymore. But we do have another challenge, like too much of the content, too many detection rules, too many queries. What should I deploy? What should I use? And SOC Prime alone, I guess, we do add hundreds of new detections every month. And I guess within few past years, we doubled the amount, the number of detections that we have on the platform. And we do have different sources of the content run into our platform. We do have our internal team that does threat research and create the content. Also, we have so-called threat bounty program, like developers all over the world, they create and submit content to our platform. So as I mentioned, like exponential growth of the content, right? And like what to do with it? How do I work with all that content? And as Mark mentioned, Gartner's saying that 30%, like too much data, like the amount of data that companies being collected, are being ingested is always growing. And then the detection that covers that is also growing because threat landscape, new techniques, TDPs, new tools, new threats, like the number of them are growing all the time. New vulnerabilities, new exploits, 0 days, everybody wants to be covered, right? So in our platform, as mentioned, we do have 13,000 rules detection. Well, not rules, but let's say detections. And sometimes it's quite hard to work with that number in terms of what should I deploy as a rules, as like real-time rules that produce me incidents? Because you can't really deploy everything. I guess Security Operations Center will be overwhelmed and they will not be happy if you deploy that many detections. Aside of the fact that not, well, almost can't say every, but quite a few, almost all of the CMs, they got either hard or soft limitation, right? Some of them are saying that you can't really deploy more than X number of real-time detections. The others got soft limits. If you deploy more than, you may affect your performance. And another fact that not everything is supposed to be deployed as real time. A lot of content, a lot of detection should be used for threat hunting, should be used within like investigation. They may produce you a bunch of hits, like really a lot of hits. And not saying about false positives, I'm rather saying about benign activity. All right. So what do we do with all that amount of content, with all that extended threat landscape, with growing number of threats and content that addresses those threats? So that's exactly one of the points that we had in mind while developing Attack Detective. Advanced threat hunting. So it automatically validates detection step. Against real-time attack surface visibility. Investigate existing, let's say, risks or threats, matching custom threat hunting scenarios. And then it helps you to prioritize procedures to find attacks, breaches, and so on. And there are a few concepts that we follow within Attack Detective. So the very first one is we don't really collect, don't really send anything back to our platform. So this is like really important concept for us. Query the data, work with the data, process with the data where the data lives. This is like AWS open source. Okay, we will work, Attack Detective will work with open source. Is Security Lake, we will work with Security Lake without having a need to transfer the data to our platform to somehow process it. So instead of sending data to our platform and doing the analysis on the platform, we do send detections, we do send algorithms and queries to your Security Lake, and then getting back on like the hits, number of hits. So that's one of the, let's say, like, key concept that we follow. Just to represent the integration with Amazon Security Lake. It's quite simple, nothing super sophisticated. Mark mentioned Security Lake is where the data lives, and you may interact with Security Lake via either Amazon Athena, open source on this scheme, and with Security Lake, we work via Athena, Amazon Athena. So it's just simple integration, GDBC, connectivity, and that's it. Click link, as I am always saying, click link, next, done. As simple as it is. And we also follow another concept of working with Security Lake or with any CM, that is like we call what Attack Detective does, the scan, we call it investigation. Sometimes we call it scan. So scan is performed within few steps, within, let's call it steps. And the very first, let's go over here. So the very first step after the integration is done is to do a data audit. That's very important because we do want to understand what log sources, what data you have in your security lake. And we want to understand that having in mind two, let's say, key points. The very first one is I need to run queries only relevant and applicable for you, for your environment. Why would I send you detections for VPC flow logs if you don't collect that, right? So it's not efficient. So the very first step is to understand the data, not to prepare the relevant and applicable rule set for you. And the second key point, sometimes it's even more important, is to understand the gap. As we analyze log sources, and we may check what event types, event names, event IDs, whatever you call it, you have inside, then we may say that, okay, you are missing critical event IDs or event types to detect those techniques or tools or actors. And you may get that, you may go to whoever is responsible for doing the integration of data sources, log source, and say, hey, this is critical. I want those event IDs, I want those log sources to be ingested as well, because they are critical. And so on top of that, we're saying that, okay, that's how you do it. That's how we enable. We do add to configuration to enable those event types, event IDs. And we try to follow vendor best practices, right? Based on our experience and vendor best practices. If vendor is saying, for example, you collect AWS and AWS is saying, okay, you rather be willing to collect those event names or those event types, that's what we will give. Maybe a bit of our experience on top. So it's like combination of our knowledge of our experience and vendor best practices. So that was the first step of doing the investigation within Attack Detective to do a data audit. So two takeaways for data audit. The very first one is visibility, like what you have, what content is applicable for you right now, and blind spots, and gaps. What you might be willing to add to extend the visibility, to extend the potential detection coverage. And after the data audit is done, and after the data audit is done, you may run the scan like investigation itself. After the detection has been defined according to your log sources, to your event IDs, event types, queries are being executed one by one. And as I mentioned, nothing like no sensitive data, no personal data is being sent back to the platform. Whatever lives in your environment stays in your environment. We just do collect like number of hits. This query was executed, that many hits, that's it. Based on that information, we give you these details mapped to MITRE ATT&CK, the heat map. So you can really start doing the investigation with priority in mind, right? Because you got this heat map and you can focus on something that is more critical. And then right from Attack Detective UI, you may drill down to Security Lake with exact same query that was executed that provided you hits with exact timelines, and start kind of continue the investigation within Athena interface. But again, even here, we will not leave you on your own with the AWS Athena interface. We got this small but really cool browser extension. So what it does, it helps you to work with detections. So pretty much you got hit, right? Let me just explain you a bit of a flow. You got a hit. And you can see that hit on the Attack Detective UI. You can go and hunt and kind of drill down from SockPrime platform to AWS Athena UI and continue working with Athena. And this extension will help you to work and to add the conditions, to fine-tune the query, to add exception, remove exception, to filter out events based on different fields. Users, host names, you may customize what this extension will help you with. And it just simplifies all the operations that you do while doing the investigation. To add username, to remove host name, exception, remove, add. So feel free open source, go to GitHub to check it. And it supports quite a few platforms. Actually, I don't remember the exact number right now, but it works with quite a few. Right now, it's been constantly updated. And we've been adding the support of stated Chrome, Firefox, Edge. We've been adding platforms that it can work with. So don't hesitate, go grab it. What's next? Yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. So just to summarize everything, so Prime works with multi-cloud in terms of you have AWS OpenSearch and you have Security Lake, that's fine. From one single UI, so Prime Attack Detective, you'll be able to query and OpenSearch and Security Lake. Because I've been involved in a couple of projects, and you all may know how it works, right? That security data, like specific data, may go to CM to OpenSearch, and the rest that you don't have the detection or for compliance or for any other reasons you may collect in Security Lake. If you want to query both environments, you can have OpenSearch and Security Lake and work with SOC Prime from a single UI to cover both. Zero Trust, yeah, as I mentioned, we don't really collect anything. Where the data lives, it lives there. We don't get anything sensitive back. That's pretty much it from my side. I guess the next, what we will have next? Next, we will have the next part of webinar. Mark, am I right? We will have practical, like a workshop. It's not a webinar, I guess it will be a workshop, right? So we will demonstrate how it works in kind of real life, in real use case, real case. So we will have Security Lake, we will have SOC Prime Attack Detective integrated with Security Lake. We will get, we'll have data in Security Lake. We will, I guess, simulate kind of maybe attack patterns. And then we'll have Attack Detective doing the data audit and doing the investigation, doing the scan. And we will showcase how everything is combined, what the workflow is, and kind of demonstrate. Yeah, it'll be more like a workshop rather than a webinar.
I think that is correct. So in the next session, it will be pretty much a technical deep dive. Okay, now we have teased you enough how it will work.
Yeah.
The second webinar will really demonstrate all the working pieces, and you can see it's a ready available solution supporting pretty much your threat hunting and investigation use cases. Without
Yep.
further ado, I want to thank you from the AWS side for today's webinar, and maybe final word from you. So
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having. Thanks for webinar. Thanks for a great opportunity. Looking forward for the next webinar where we will hopefully break something like practically, maybe build, maybe break. That will be, I guess, a bit more fun. It's always more fun when you do practical stuff, especially with simulation and emulation, right? That'll be interesting. So I guess it's time for Q&A questions. Do we have questions? How do I check them?
So we have one question for you. How does a tactic detective save time versus manual efforts?
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. It saves time in few ways. The very first one, as the first step of doing the investigation or doing the scan, is data audit. So pretty much within like 5 minutes, it will get you the understanding of what data you have, what event IDs, event types you have. So you don't really need to run, let's say, either report or something. Yeah, like a report answering the question, what I have right now, what's the coverage, what am I able to detect having the data that I have today. I've been asked with that question every second, or every project that I was involved, some point of time, customers or like security leaders, they're asking like, okay, we did integrate something. What it gives me, right? So you need to answer the question, what's the coverage, what you're able to address having that data. And the second question, always I get it, maybe something to improve. It's like, well, yeah, but exactly what? Then you start spending a bunch of time, digging deep into vendors' best practices. What do I collect? What should I collect? Should I collect this or maybe not? What will be the volume of the data? Well, okay, what will be the value of adding that log source or that data source versus the cost that I need to pay having that much volume of data, right? But in SOC Prime data audit, you got within 5 minutes, you got the answers to almost all of those questions. And the second point is doing the threat hunting itself. So it saves you time. Just let me give you the example. If you have a threat hunting exercise somewhere in the nearest future, what you can do is you can create a scan, you can schedule it, and by the time you need to start doing your threat hunting exercise, you'll have attack detective scan done with all the applicable and relevant queries executed. You'll have this heat map, and you may start your threat hunting exercise not from the very beginning, right? Just manually copy paste of the queries, but you have a solid ground where to start with. So it saves you a lot of time on copy paste of the queries. It saves you a lot of time on initial phase of threat hunting. That's kind of two, I guess, use cases from data availability, data audit perspective, and from threat hunting perspective. Not to run all the queries like copy paste, like tens, dozens, like hundreds of them.
I think something I want to add maybe is, for me, one of the biggest differentiators of the SOC Prime platform in the inventory phase is it pretty much gives me very good visibility. What data do I really have? Then if you map that result to the MITRE attack framework, you will very easily see where your weaknesses are and where you need focus by providing more raw data for a tool like SOC Prime to really be more of an advantage. Sorry to interrupt you. Back to you.
No, that's totally fine. That's a really good point. I totally agree with you, like visibility and gaps. And the very first one is like visibility, where do I stand at?
Okay, it looks like we have no more open questions, so I think I wanna thank you one more time for all your time. On the SOC Prime website, we will inform everybody when the next session will be hosted. And yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you today. And
yeah, if you have, thanks Mark for having me. It was a really good one. And guys, everyone on the webinar, if you got any other question related to Security Lake, you can reach out to Mark or his team, I guess. He'll be happy to answer that. The same goes if you have any questions related to SOC Prime, feel free to reach out to any channels like email, LinkedIn. Feel free to.
Thank you very much and goodbye.